Hello everyone and welcome to the Quilt Show. If a picture paints 1,000 words, then a fabric portrait exudes an essay. And let's face it, you're going to love today's guest, who is not only a fiber artist and a teacher, but she's a painter and she's going to teach us how to quilt faces. Plus, Lauren Vlcek returns and she is going to teach us, let's see, what's it called? Hand-drawn quilt labels. Stick around everybody, we're going to have a blast. And now, your hosts for the Quilt Show, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
Welcome to the Quilt Show, everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining today. I want you to notice I'm missing my cohort, Alex, and she's a little under the weather, or perhaps she's on a Caribbean cruise. I'll let you choose which one of those is true. But our guest today is Phyllis Cullen. She's from San Diego, California, and I'm excited to get to know Phyllis, and you are too. Welcome to the Quilt Show.
Thanks, Ricky.
I am really excited to get to know you and your quilts. You are really known for portrait quilts, although you do more than that. But I'd like to just get into the first quilt so people can see. Tell us about it, and then we're going to learn your story, okay?
Okay.
All right, tell us about this.
Well, this quilt is called the Sage, and that's sort of a pun on two things. When I was with a group of artists in Kyrgyzstan last year, I took a picture of this man, and he was sort of the village advisor, I guess you'd say. And then when our 20 Perspectives group, which is an international group of quilt artists that I'm a member of, had a challenge to do a monochrome quilt, I got green. So sage green, that's the Sage.
I love the way you did the eyes and the wrinkles and the age of the sage. I thought that was really, really well done. Now you, in your portraits, I understand that you like to bring the soul of all of that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, you know, when you look at his face, you can see, you know, the years of pretty harsh weather being up in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, and but you can also see expressions. The expressions mold the muscles of the face. So as he was smiling and cheerful, it makes those wrinkles. So Don't anybody be afraid of the wrinkles that are coming from your eyes. They show that you're listening and that you're smiling and that you're a happy person.
I think that's really wonderful. Let's look at the next quilt. Tell us about this one.
Well, this is one of the first portrait quilts I did, and those are my parents. And that was their typical expression. They were smiling. And I found out right away, because of my art background, that you didn't have to make things in really what you'd call skin tones. And as long as you get a good variety of values, you've got a realistic thing. And to me, it's good to see my parents smiling down from my wall.
I think it's wonderful. And I noticed the fabric choices are really important as well. Now, you love not only to find the soul, but you want to tell the story.
Yes.
So even in the last quilt, what's the story that you would want us to learn from that?
Well, this was a couple who, you know, were very happily married for 70 years. And, you know, they came from kind of a poor background, especially during the Depression and everything, which, you know, colored the rest of their lives. A lot of relatives who, you know, had hard times, but they could smile. And especially my father, it would take 20 minutes to get him out of a restaurant because he had to go from table to table and tell jokes to people. So you can kind of see those crinkles.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to rewind now, because we're looking at you as a quilter and quilt artist. But boy, do you have a story to tell. Let's go all the way back to the childhood of trying to just put art into your world, but also the path that you chose.
Well, I grew up in Boston, which is pretty much a hub of culture and art and so on. And my mother was a painter, so very early I was exposed to art. And on the weekends, all four of us in the family got to do one activity per week. And since I liked art, they dropped me off at the Museum of Fine Arts. And even when I was 6 or 7 years old, I would sit in front of the statues and sketch them.
That's fabulous.
Statues are great to sketch. They don't move.
Right,
You know?
right. They're there for you, and they're not going to get tired of sitting there.
I recommend to everybody, if you want to learn to draw faces, do it from a statue.
But I am a little bit curious. Was it your mom that gave you the inspiration to do that, or did you just on your own say, I'm going to take a sketch pad? I mean, do you know what prompted you to even do that?
Well, my mother was quite willing to share her pencils and pens early on, but I can remember always just enjoying, using art materials. And I'm not sure, my sister was really good at music, and she got to go to the New England Conservatory.
Wow.
I couldn't play anything, so I guess I went to the art museum.
That's fabulous. That's wonderful.
We were not wealthy people, so the art museum was free, and
Yeah.
it was and even the art classes for kids were pretty inexpensive, so it worked out pretty well.
I love that. Let's take a look at another quilt, and then I'm going to continue that story.
Okay.
Oh my word! Talking about the soul and the story. That's fabulous.
Yeah, well, this is my youngest son and my youngest grandchild, and they always called her Little Bean, even before she was born. So that's the name of the quilt. But this was actually made again for my 20 Perspectives group, because we all had to make a quilt in response to a quote from literature. And some people had some very high literature and fancy books that I couldn't read, but the quote that I went from was from Winnie the Pooh, and it says, "Sometimes the smallest things take up the biggest part of your heart."
That is so true. That is a treasure of a quilt. I mean, the emotion for me, and that is very well done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, you guys, get ready for this. We're sitting here talking like you're the artist, and that's been your life from childhood and on, but it wasn't. You took a whole left turn and went.
Well, you can use both sides of your brain, Ricky.
Yes.
I loved art, and I've done it all the time, but I was also a physician, and I spent 40 years practicing medicine because people, it's all still people, and I was fascinated, my artwork was around people, even if they were statues, and I wanted to go into a field where I could help people. So I worked as an anesthesiologist, and a lot of that time was done in third world countries doing volunteer work.
Quite a bit of that time, actually, really.
Yeah,
Years.
quite a bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then I started working with chronic pain patients.
Yeah. I have a number on here. You were a doctor for 40 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what kind of things did you do in the third world countries?
Well, most of the time I was working with teams where we were fixing kids' faces. They, the child would be hidden in the hut because they had a cleft lip or a cleft palate, and nobody wanted to take them out, and we gave them a new face. And a lot of times, kids fell into the family fire because the yurt that they were living in has a big fire in the middle, and kids play around and they end up in the fire, and kids would end up stuck like this. So we repaired them, and they were able to get outside and have a life.
Yeah, I mean, that alone is an amazing story, and God bless you for all the work that you did. I know that's...
very rewarding work, very rewarding.
Well, and speaking of faces, that one doesn't need any fixing, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, that one is called Peeper, and that was my granddaughter. She was peeking out of the window, and I just felt like, just making a big close-up. And what I wanted to show people also is that you can use fabrics from very light to very dark, and if you capture the light the right way, you have something that looks very alive.
That is beautiful. Let's go ahead and look at the next quilt, because I'm just in love with these. They're stunning.
Well, sometimes I like to do animals as well, and if you're a painter, you don't have to paint just one type of work. This is part of my series of endemic birds of Hawaii, and they're becoming extinct, but this is the Palila bird. The technique is what I call improvisational impressionist,
Okay.
where instead of painting with paint daubs, I'm painting with little pieces of fabric.
That's fabulous. Now, let's talk about painting, because you did do painting.
Yes.
And this is a story that relates to your mom?
Well, my mother was a painter, and I painted alongside her many times, and it was a lot of fun. And but then I got involved with fabric, you know, and then there were all these wonderful printed fabrics, and I thought, well, you know, with paint you can paint one color with each brush stroke. But if you have little pieces of printed fabric, you're painting color and texture and design and complex things, and using little pieces of fabric as paint daubs, you've got all that dimension, besides which then you can collect all this fabric because you need a palette. So I have a whole wall of fabric at home.
Well, that's a shock. All right, let's look at this next one.
Okay, well, the other, there are other forms of artwork that I enjoy, and one of them is stained glass. So I figured out my own system of doing stained glass. But this particular quilt derives from I was with a group of painters, and we were all painting in Venice. And you know, you look at a lot of painters, and they're looking directly at the bridge, and you see a lot of bridges. And I thought, I want to do it from a different viewpoint. So this is Venice from the fish's eye view. So, of course.
Oh, of course it is. That is fabulous. Well, one of the things that I've gotten to know about you in the last few minutes is that you and your work is very much about humanity. You really care about the big picture, but you also go much deeper. And I really love that. It just moves me so much. I really appreciate it. Now, you're going to teach me how to do these portraits, right? You're going to give me some information, and that's what we're going to do first when we come back with Phyllis Cullen. On the next quilt show, we've got bugs on the set. Creepy, crawly bugs. But you're going to love them.
Beth Cunningham is a fine artist from Texas who is elevating even the lowest of the insect world with her hand embellishments. I've never been so excited to see bugs.
Plus, Beth says her embroidery can spell out thoughts and feelings she can't always express in spoken words. See the stitches she uses for lettering.
And then Ricky was feeling so generous, he gave the shirt off his back to Michelle Friedman, who's always on the hunt for men's plaid shirts.
Michelle worked in the apparel industry for years, and she'll show you how a plaid pattern can add a nice punch to your next project.
We have bugs and boots and plaid pursuits right here on the next Quilt Show.
Join us. Welcome back, everyone. I think this is the first time on the Quilt Show. I'm going to make a face with Phyllis Cullen. That was wonderful. Thanks for being here, Phyllis. It was a great show. No, we're going to make a fabric face, and I have never seen this method before. It's really fun, but let's do a little show and tell first, okay?
Okay, well, what I found out was, even though I don't mind drawing faces because I've had a lot of art school, most of my students said, I'd love to make a portrait. I'd like it to look exactly like whoever it's supposed to be, but I can't draw. And I said, no problem. We use a program called Photoshop Elements to make a pattern. It's only 4 steps, and it's not very hard. But the main thing with a portrait, or actually anything else, to make it look realistic, is you have to have lights and shadows, and that means values. So if you look at this face, you can see that the light areas, as quilters, we pick light fabrics, and for the shadow areas, we pick dark fabrics, and that's all that's here. It's 4 fabrics: light, medium dark, and very dark.
Very dark is actually the almost black in the eyes and around the face, right? Okay.
But we're not limited to simple, straightforward fabrics like that. We can get light, medium dark, and dark out of all sorts of fancy printed fabrics, and then we can also capture the spirit of the person who who we're looking at.
And
so
there's a lovely smile. But I just want to pause on this for a moment because I'm standing right here at this, and it has a different vibe than if you're back a little bit. It really comes like into focus.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, any art you should look at from 6 feet away. That's
Okay.
the rule. Okay. So here's my flower girl.
Oh my gosh, let's do these side by side.
Yep. My serious reader.
Oh my gosh, look
And
at
then
this.
this is my artist.
Oh my God, let's put them all three together.
Okay.
Look at that.
It looks just like them, but with fabrics that reflect their personality as well. Besides which, these fabrics are so much more fun than skin tones.
Absolutely. So the message is you don't have to be using match the color and the real face. It's all about the 4 values that you're going to be using.
So even if you use fairly simple values and look really up close, it's still light, medium dark, and dark.
And that's really just like taking the photo and cropping in, or you took the photo really, really close, right?
Just cropping in.
Fabulous.
Now you should pick a photo that's been taken in the light, because if it's all in the shadow, all the shadows, you won't get the values. You have to have lights and shadows.
Okay.
So let's take a picture and let's make one.
All right.
All right, this is my Uncle Nady, and besides being a professor of Latin and Greek, he's also sort of the family clown, so I just love his face.
Yeah.
And we are going to translate that into a pattern. Here, let me keep that here for just a second, because I want to point out that when we use Photoshop elements, we can take these light areas, and Photoshop will actually tell us where they start and stop, so that we have pieces of fabric that we can actually cut.
Now this is kind of an auto filter. You just kind of click the button and it goes there.
Well, it's not. It doesn't take too much, and actually there's several programs that will do it. But Photoshop Elements, we can tweak it a little bit.
Right. And don't be afraid of this, people, because this truly is very simple. Yeah, just
4
a
steps,
boom, boom.
and you can learn them.
Okay.
Okay. So we are going to take that pattern now, and we are going to make 4 copies of it, because we have to have 4 pieces of fabric, right?
All right.
So we're going to choose our fabrics, and the ones I'm going to choose here, there's my light.
Now look at this, everybody. It's like a blue and pink light star fabric, okay? I wouldn't have thought that, but it's going to work.
Yep, it's a light value. So we have a light, we have a medium light.
Which is this.
Wait, no, they're out of order.
All right,
okay,
let's pull that one up.
Yeah. We have our light, we have our medium light fabric here.
And let you turn that around however you need.
Yep, let's turn this all around like this, so that everybody can see what we're doing. Okay.
All right, there we go.
Light, medium light.
Now, so let's look at it. Hang on a second.
Just put them side by side, right on the edge there. Light, medium light.
Okay, but I got to show the camera.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Light, medium light.
Medium dark.
Medium dark, and the last one is this dark one right here. Okay?
Right.
All right. Sorry to slow you down there, but we really needed to see that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so now the way we set this up is we take our lightest fabric.
I got to put this back here so we can work here.
Okay. We take our lightest fabric and we put it aside. We're not going to touch that for a minute. But what we are going to do with the other 3 fabrics is we are going to put Misty Fuse on the back. Misty Fuse is this very thin kind of webbing of glue, and we put that over the entire back of the other 3 fabrics. And then we're going to put these pattern pieces on the front. But we don't want them to be on the front permanently. We want them to be on the front just long enough to cut the pieces out. So we use repositionable spray glue. You can use something called 505 from the quilt shop. There's a 3M variety called Easy Tack, or this Scotch one. It doesn't matter. The important thing is it has to say repositionable.
Right.
If it doesn't, you're going to have a permanent paper.
Right.
And that doesn't work. Okay. All right, so after we do that, what we're going to do with each of these pieces is we now have the paper, the fabric, the Misty Fuse, and I've cut off the corners of the picture very carefully.
Yep, so I can actually see the white edge of the paper, and you've trimmed on that corner on four places, right?
That's
on all 4
right.
sides.
So you know that this is the number 1 fabric. number 2 fabric, number 3 fabric, and number 4 fabric. And that's what we want to show at the end. So on the first piece, I'm going to outline everything that's a number 1. And you can see you don't have to do anything that's less than 2 threads thick. So I'm just going to outline these pieces roughly like this. The only place I have to be very careful is if I'm right around the eyes. Now I'm not going to outline the little highlights in the eyes because we'll put those in later.
Okay.
Okay, so after we've outlined that on our number 1 piece, we're going to cut those pieces out because we want our number 1 to show through. So now we take our number 1 fabric.
This is like your face reconstruction in the third world countries.
Wow, if it was only that easy.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right.
Okay, and you know, as I always tell my students, you know, don't worry if you take a stitch wrong because, you know, having taken care of patients with faces, if a stitch is wrong here, nobody's wound comes apart, nobody gets infected, nobody bleeds, and nobody dies, and nobody sues you. Okay, so anyway.
Woohoo! That's the best part.
So we are just going to iron the number 2 piece on top of the number 1. Just press it down a little bit.
You're ready for me to do that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, so right on the paper you're saying, right?
Yeah, just do it right on the paper.
Here I go,
it
right
won't
on
hurt
the
anything.
paper.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so.
I hope I get it enough. But then will you peel the paper off?
Yeah, we're going
and
to take
leave
the paper
fabric
off.
behind?
Yes. As a matter of fact, as soon as you press it a little bit, we can take the paper off.
Okay.
Doesn't look like too much yet, does it?
No,
But
it doesn't look like too much yet.
trust me, it will. Okay. So now for the next step, we are going to just move this over just a little bit here. And we're going to take our number 3 fabric. This is our medium dark fabric. And this time what we want to remove is the number 1s and the number 2s so that those will show through in these areas.
Okay, and that's the purple outlines.
So I have outlined the 1s and the 2s here with the purple. But I've outlined this little piece in green, even though that's a piece we want to keep. We want to keep all of this, we want to keep all of this, and we want to keep this.
But it's like floating like an island, right?
That's why it's in green, because I want to be very careful. So when I cut these pieces out, we are going to cut them out very carefully so that when I remove them, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so when we can, here, just take this and put this down here.
Underneath?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to line up, we're going to use the corners to line up where that's going to go.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. And then we are going to, you notice that I cut these pieces out without chopping into them because I can use these as templates to make sure that everything's in place.
Okay.
I'm removing the fabric from this because I don't want to put it back there again. It's a number 2 area, or number 1 and 2 area. But I'm going to use the paper just as a kind of a template so that when this all wiggles around, I know where that goes.
Let me give you guys a heads up. If we left the fabric on that has the fusible, you could accidentally press and then now you've really flubbed up.
All
right?
you have is, you'll have a solid piece of fabric like that. Okay. Now this piece, again, this is 1 and 2, so we take the fabric off the back of this one as well. See why we needed the repositionable glue.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take this fabric off, and we're going to use this as a template as well. Now this will not stay permanently there because it's just paper. Now the piece that we want to keep, of course, is 3 and 4. So we're going to keep the fabric on that one. But now, instead of saying, well, does it go down here or here or something? We know exactly where it's going to go.
And it's going to stay because the fabric is still there.
The fabric is there. So now when we iron this, just press the whole thing. Yep, it'll be fine.
God. Okay. All right. Just making sure I got it right. And maybe it won't take too much.
Nope, just takes a little bit. Misty Fuse is very fast.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
so
that's
hopefully
good.
that's good.
So now we remove this paper and we remove the paper that's on the fabric. We remove this paper.
And to remove the final paper?
And we remove the outer paper. I call that the frame. Yep. Sometimes it gets a little stuck there. We just have to pull it out. Now we can tear it. It doesn't matter.
I love the way this goes together.
And we just remove all of that.
Okay.
And
this comes off last.
And that comes off last.
It's kind of stuck right there.
Oh, yeah. just,
Let me just get it into there and
yeah.
make sure that that's where it needs to be.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we remove that. And Nady is starting to look a little bit more like himself.
Yeah.
But we've got one more layer to go.
All right.
So now, if you move that just slightly to the side again.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so now for layer number 4, we're removing the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, which I've outlined here. And that means we're going to be taking out this whole big piece, but we have all of these little islands. So again, I've outlined those in green because those are number 4s. Those are the darkest fabrics.
Right.
And we want the darkest fabrics to show through.
Okay.
So when we cut that out, we end up with the outer part. This is what we've cut out. And we're going to use just the paper again to know where to place all these pieces.
To place those little bits.
Yeah.
And by the magic
doing
of
that,
having it done,
there we are.
there's the finished. Look at this. And let's add going all the way back to Uncle, what's his name?
Nady.
Uncle Nady. Look at this, you guys. Fabulous. I love this method. Now, I don't know that we're going to have time to run into the improvisational method, but by basically doing the same thing on steam-a-seam and using bits of fabric,
Yeah, so if you want to use 5 1s and 5 2s and so on, instead of just one, what we can do is sort of a method where we just trace we trace our pattern onto steam-a-seam and just number these parts. We cut up a whole bunch of our fabrics. Now I have a few 1s, a few 2s, a few 3s, and a few 4s. I chop them up, and I just use little pieces of fabric to fill in all of these different areas. And then his face will still have the same light to dark shadows in it, but there'll be a lot more fabrics, which makes it kind of fun. And then we get something that looks like...
Yeah. Let's start here. So this is
that's
similar.
Not Nady.
Oh my God, that's great.
That's Nady's cat.
Nady's cat. That's great. And
Okay.
now, did you make this up? Did this process? Is this something you made up?
As far as I know, yeah.
No, you are a genius. Look
Okay.
at this. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, obviously Moses' face is collaged
Moses.
there. So, yeah.
Okay.
And this was actually done for a studio at Quilt Associates show called Text Messaging. And so this is obviously the earliest versions of the tablets back when when the rules were written in stone.
You are so wonderful. Oh my gosh. Now you guys, faces, that's what we're still doing, but it's the quilting now, because you know how you have to try to figure out how to do the contours, because how do you quilt it? Well, that's what we're going to do when we come back, right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it, and know you are too. We'll see you in a minute. Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to get into doing some contour facial quilting. But Phyllis, first you've got a quilt retreat center that you have, is that right?
Well, it's a general retreat center, but I do teach quilting there, and we have a big room with lots of with space for 16 people and their sewing machines, and I love to do classes there.
Well, and your students love to come too. As a matter of fact, they love to come so much they'll come when they're about to drop a baby.
That's kind of a funny story. I did have a lady who was she was just in early stages of labor, but she'd paid for that class and she really wanted to make that portrait. So she came in, and as she's cutting, I see her sitting there going, and I went, maybe you should be heading over to the hospital? And she says, no, I want to finish this. And I said, well, you're going to have that baby very soon. She says, but you're a doctor, you can take care of that.
I love it. Oh my gosh, the stories we could tell as quilt teachers, right?
I know.
All right, let's get back to Uncle
Nady.
Nady, yes, Nady.
Okay, well, Uncle Nady is now a quilt top, but as you know, it's not a quilt till it's quilted, and especially with a portrait quilt. So my students, have come to me in the class and they said, well, I really like this and it looks like whoever it is, but how do I quilt it? So that's where this came from. So what we want to do is not quilt around these pieces.
Okay.
Because that's not what I want to emphasize. Those are not anatomical pieces. Those are just where the light happens to hit or the shadows. So what we want to do is what we would do as artists, which is to draw lines that follow the contours of the face. And when I say the contours of the face, if you look at your face or you feel your cheeks like this, you know it goes up, then down, up over the nose, down again. We have 6 planes on the face. And if we do our stitching that follows those planes, we will accentuate the 3-dimensional and therefore the realistic effect here. So that's what we call contour quilting, and let's explain how it works.
Okay.
But before we do, I'd like to show the difference between an unquilted quilt top, and this is my son and his wife. And, you know, we've done all the layers, and it looks a little rough. I mean, it sort of looks like them, but it's certainly not terribly realistic. But look what happens after we add the contour quilting.
Yeah, wow.
There's quite a
and that
difference.
you're showing us in paper is this piece
Exactly.
done in fabric. But when you add that extra, it gives dimension, it gives depth.
And it holds all the pieces down.
Yeah, people are still going to be scared to do it though, so you're going to have to make it easy for them today,
Okay,
or
well-
believable, right?
Well, just like I said, that you don't have to know how to draw. We're not going to just put this under the sewing machine and do these contours. The first thing we're going to do instead is we're going to take some pictures of this, and we're going to do our practicing on these pictures. Now, I drew the contour lines here on our pattern piece just because you can see them a little bit more easily, but these are the same lines that you're going to draw on here. You
Okay.
draw over the cheek, up over the nose, over the next cheek. We curve, all the lines are curved. They curve around the eyes, up around the mouth, up around the chin, and so on.
Yep.
And by doing that, we will have nice, neat contour lines that hold everything down.
Okay.
So once you've done it on this, you can make as many copies of this as you want, but we're going to draw the same lines here. So we're going to come over the curve here, down, up over the nose, down like that.
Okay.
And we do the next one like this. And if we did it wrong on this, you've got another piece of paper and you just keep
Print
doing
another
it.
copy and try
And
again.
just keep working on it like that and draw all of your lines on that. And if that still makes you nervous to do that, you can actually take a clear piece of plastic and draw your lines on that. So
and you could
if
even
it
do
was
that with dry erase, right?
dry
Yeah.
erase or a Sharpie, and then if you don't like the way the lines are, you can just erase them with,
Right.
okay.
The Sharpie doesn't like to erase, but the dry
the dry-
erase would definitely erase.
I will incorporate that into my classes. Thank you, Ricky. Okay, so anyway, you can practice with that. And after you've practiced with that, you should also practice the muscle memory of actually stitching it. You still don't have to go right to your thing.
Yeah, so this guy is still sitting over here free and clear.
Nobody's
and
touched it
you're
yet.
gaining confidence with every step, right?
Yep, you've drawn
Okay.
the lines twice or 3 times, however many, but now we're actually going to stitch them.
I need to raise that needle for you there.
Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to put this here, and this is exactly what you would do with your actual piece, although you would put batting and backing, of course. And then you just push this down, and then the first time you do this, you can just follow your lines, and you can stitch on paper. The sewing machine doesn't care. And you can follow your lines. This gives you the muscle memory of doing this. And you can even do it on a copy of it after you've done it on the copy where you've drawn the lines. You can do it.
Yeah, what a great idea to be able to just practice and gain confidence. And of course, you're just going kind of back and over.
I'm just going back and forth across the whole thing.
Now, one of the things I tell my quilting students is that, you know, when you start getting out of control, stop and also breathe. Because
Good point.
that's a thing that we tend to, we just take a breath and don't do anything.
But I guarantee if you do this 3 or 4 times on the paper, you'll be able to do it with a lot more confidence and a lot more, with a lot less anxiety.
Okay, and the foot that we're using is just a regular quilting foot.
Yeah, just a free motion foot, any free motion foot, and if
Drop
your
the feed
machine,
dogs.
yeah, if your machine will sew without thread, you can even practice this and not waste thread on doing it,
Okay.
but it doesn't really matter.
Sure, okay.
So
All right.
there, when you've done that, let me talk about
The color of thread?
The thread.
All right.
Okay, so obviously we're doing this when we have batting and backing on there, and the batting that I use should be somewhat flat. You
Okay.
really don't want to add more wrinkles to people that they don't
Yeah,
have.
fat bat out of the question.
Right. So we put a flat batting, and sometimes people put a stabilizer even, but you don't have to. And then the backing, and you're ready to go. I use that repositionable glue to put the batting and backing on, the same one.
Right, okay.
Okay, so it's ready to go. And then when you choose your thread, I choose a thread that's a little bit thinner than usual, maybe a size, a 50 or 60 weight thread, because I really don't want the thread to stand out. I want the
impression
underlining
of it,
picture.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I like to use a thread that's not shiny, because if you shine the light on it, then it would be distracting as well. But the most important thing about the thread is that you want to use thread that's lighter than any of the fabrics underneath it. You can use this light thread for the 1 and 2 areas here, and then switch to one that's a little bit lighter than the 3 and 4 for this.
I also like that 3 and 4 threads a bit variegated, so it shifts just a little bit and provides nuance.
Yeah, a little bit. And if you do that, instead of going all the way across, back and forth, which you can do with the light thread, you can use your light thread all the way through, and that's fine. But if you want to use a slightly darker thread in your darker areas, what you do is you come back and forth over here, and then you cross that area
Like
in
dovetailing
between.
them together.
Yeah, just kind of interdigitating is what we say in medicine, but
Okay.
but that's your fingers coming together and stitches like that, and then that blends your two threads together.
And I just want to hold this up again just to look at the whole image with all the contours and how it's fabulous. It's really beautiful. I love the way the eyes sparkle. Did you do anything special for the eyes
I'm
there?
glad you mentioned that, because if at all possible, put a little dot of white in the eyes. And I just use a little white acrylic pen.
All right. That shows up really, really good.
Yeah.
All right, now we've got some
Okay.
more samples, right?
Yeah, we've got a few more samples. Just we can, I just want to show, obviously you can see again the stitching is with thread that's lighter than the underlying fabric. I did switch to a slightly darker thread for the darker areas, and
But one of the things I want to point out that I'm noticing is that, again, you're talking about interdigitating.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking this light thread off, past where the actual
Right.
piece is, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think people would try to confine themselves to that area, but
Yeah,
letting it kind of go.
yeah, you want to cross the pieces of fabric, because one of the things we want to do is hold those pieces of fabric down.
Sure.
Yeah, so here they're, here's the lines like that. You can see that, again, these are, it doesn't matter how far apart or how close together, but you don't want them to cross. You just want them to be parallel.
I want to talk about her hair on this one.
Okay.
Can you just describe?
Yeah, well, when I do hair is threads. You have threads of hair, so almost always I will use a thread that kind of matches the kind of hair they have. So I would use a variegated thread. So if someone has blonde hair, I use a thread that has yellow, orange, purple, and green.
Okay.
And that will look blonde on top of whatever base you have. If they have salt and pepper hair, you take one of those variegated threads with black, white, and gray in it.
Yes.
And then you just use that all over, and it'll still look right, because the shadows and the highlights underneath will still show through.
That's fabulous.
And of course, if you want to get really crazy and make your thread, your quilting contour lines really close together, you can actually thread paint the whole thing. And if I had a colored pencil and was coloring his face, I would just use that and do it the same way.
All right.
And we've been talking about realistic quilts this whole time, but you don't have to be realistic.
I'm going to hold this up. This just looks great.
You can have lots of fun. And
It's a
you can
Picasso on
it's a
steroids
cubist.
face.
You can make cubist faces, surrealistic faces, cartoon faces. It's all fun.
It is fun, and that's one of the things you've taught me today is to not worry about it. Step by step by step, let it happen and just have some fun. You guys, Phyllis has 2 books. It's all about the face, and this one is more than just a pretty face. And sorry, I'm having to read upside down. But these books are available, and they not only cover the techniques, but also when you're talking about Photoshop elements, all those different things, and even getting into the contour quilting that we've talked about today.
Yeah, it has lots of illustrations of everything, and we talk about how to take a good photo reference, how to make the patterns with Photoshop elements, how to choose the fabrics, how to choose values, and how to absolutely everything. And so if I went a little bit too fast today, you can see that all of that is included in these books, and we tried to cover everything. My co-author is actually one of my first students in Israel, and after I finished the class, she said, "This is great, but how do we quilt it? You need to write a book." I said, "Certainly someone's written a book," and she said, "Nobody's written a book about how to quilt faces." I said, "I got to write a book." She says, "I'll help you. I'm a technical writer."
There you go. That works. Now, your website so people can find everything?
Phyllis Cullen Art Studio, or if you just Google my name, you'll find it.
You'll find it. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I understand there's a Facebook group as well.
Yep, and it's also called It's All About the Face, which makes it easy. We have 12,000 people on there who post pictures or pictures of something that they want some help with, and 11,999 people will offer you suggestions.
The social media comes to the rescue. Thank you so much, Phyllis. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely.
When we come back, everybody, Lauren Vlcek is back on the Quilt Show, and she's going to show us how to do some hand stylized, amazing quilt labels, and I've seen them, and I cannot wait to see how she puts it all together. So we're going to do that right after the break. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Lauren Vlcek now. Welcome back to the Quilt Show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be back.
Now, listen, it's been a little while, not ancient years, but since then, boy, lots have changed in your world.
Yes, the world marches on in 6 years. Yeah.
I understand the kids are out and gone.
Yep. Both grown up and living
And was
their
that a
life.
happy moment for you?
No. I mean, I really wanted my boys to go out and meet the world and the world to meet them. But as the mom, I did not fully realize how involved I was in all the aspects of that. And that was like ripped out from under me. I really missed doing all that stuff.
It was really difficult.
Yeah.
But now you kind of moved on from that, and you ended up being inspired to do long arming.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I had a conversation with my husband on the way home from dropping my son off at university. And I said, I think I could do that if I could buy a nice big machine.
Listen, there is one thing I know about you. Whatever you want to do, you can do.
Oh,
Because you're
thank
just
you.
that kind
Thank
of
you.
person. Let's look at this, because this
Okay.
is one of the quilts that you've done.
Yes, this is, the pattern of this is Tula Pink's Tula Nova, and it's all English paper piece by hand. And then all of the quilting work on here, I did free motion. Free motion and rulers. Some people don't count that as free motion.
Beautiful free motion.
Thank you.
I mean, it's absolutely outstanding, especially when I look at the repetition of designs that you've done.
Thank you.
It's just stunning. All right, but now you're in the Modern Quilt Guild of the Front Range?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they have gravitated to your labels, and that's what we're going to do today.
Right, yes. I figured I needed to join a guild once I started my business so I could have some clients. And then they were seeing my labels and they said, how do you make your letters look like that?
Well, let's start here, because
Right.
that'll get us to where the labels are now, right? So
Exactly.
I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think we saw similar when last time you were here about your journaling and the work that you do in books.
Probably. So mixed media art journaling, I'm not really a wordsmith, so like this is the Audrey Hepburn pink quote, but I like to make words look pretty.
Yeah, and you do it very, very well. So this became the catalyst or the inspiration for the labels we're going to see today.
Yeah, I just kind of pulled over what I was doing in my journaling to, writing the words on the quilt labels. But the art supplies don't necessarily translate.
All right, now you're going to do 2 different kinds today. Let's talk about these first.
Okay.
And you can show them. This is our prop iron for today. So,
Yes, so it's not burning my quilt.
Right, it's not. It's not. Look, I can put it right on my face. It's all good. It's a prop for what we need today. All right, so tell us about, these are permanent fabric markers.
Correct. Permanent. So a permanent marker is not necessarily something that's great to use on fabric because it might bleed. Like a lot of the permanent markers, people know Sharpie, right?
Yes.
It's an alcohol ink, and when you put it on fabric, it feathers all out,
Right.
which isn't really desirable on
Right.
your quilt label. But permanent fabric markers are made for fabric. They're relatively inexpensive. You can get them at an online store that delivers to your house.
Right.
For about $15, give or take $5.
And craft stores have them?
Craft stores have them, and they're specifically made to color, like kids color on their tennis shoes with them. And
Okay.
then it's very bold. All of the colors are very bold, and they're really vibrant, and they're very lasting.
Okay. And let's look at the labels that you've done, because
Okay.
these are fabulous.
So this is one label that I did using the fabric markers, and I layered a yellow down first, and then an orange over the top to kind of try to mimic the color in this quilt
Okay,
block.
sure. Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
beautiful. And this one?
And then this one, this was from a color challenge. So I put the fabric down there.
The
And I
challenge.
didn't color in the words down here because I wanted it to be more of an island,
I
to
get
make
it.
that pop.
Yeah.
But the colors that I did up here are the permanent fabric markers.
Okay,
what I
so
use for that.
let's get into the process of doing that and put our prop iron right back there.
Okay, so when I start a label, I usually just go to my computer. I'm super tech-lectic. I know you're not, but I am. I just type in what I want, and then when I print it out, I hope it's roughly the right size for what I want. And if
But
it's
you
not,
can make
I
it
mooch it
bigger.
around.
Yeah.
Right. So this is an example of a quilt label that I'm working on for my grandson's baby quilt.
Oh, let's talk about the grandson, shall we?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Go
Well,
on.
you start. You go for
Yeah,
it.
so my oldest son, who lives in Texas, he and his wife had a baby a little over 5 months ago. I mean, changes everything. We are now moving
And you're
to
Lolly.
the town. Yes, I'm Lolly,
and he's Preston.
Preston.
And so you're actually flying the coop and heading out of Colorado and
Yes.
going down to near San Angelo,
Yes,
Texas,
got to
right?
be part of his daily life.
Oh my
so.
God! All right, so
So, label. Years ago, I had a graphic designer make a business card for me, and she said, and I love fonts. Like I love supplies, I love colors, I love fonts. And she said, Lauren, you don't want every word to have a different font. All the fonts are beautiful, but when you do it like that, it's not beautiful anymore.
yeah, I've heard something similar.
So what she told me is you want, on my business card, you want a font, if you're gonna mix them, you want one with serifs.
Okay, now
And
tell her what
serifs
serifs are.
I think of as the hats and the shoes. So when you're looking on a letter, you have the hats and the shoes,
yep,
the little
the little extras.
Yep.
Yep.
So you want one with serifs and one sans serif without serifs.
Okay.
So that would be like this. There's no hats and shoes.
Yeah, there's no little extras in that. It's just straight lines or curved lines, but
Which for my quilt labels wasn't quite enough. So I
Okay.
came up with my own formula that is one with serifs, one without, something scrolly and something chubby.
okay. So
And I just like the way that aesthetically goes together.
so Lolly got to be scrolly,
Lolly's scrolly, Preston's
and
chubby.
Preston got to be chubby.
Yep.
And then the rest. Okay, so that's good advice. I like that.
So I've printed it out. I will tape my printed out quilt label to, what this is a clear cutting mat, which is really nice because you can move it around.
And we've got
rather
a
than-
small light table, but if you've got a
Right.
big light table that you can't rotate, this is better.
Yes, because if you tape it to a giant light table, you're going to be doing yoga moves to try to
Yeah,
trace out your letters.
Yeah.
So I will tape this to my clear cutting mat, and then I will take, this is PFD fabric, which stands for prepared for dye,
Right?
and I will tape it. I usually just tape it right where I'm working.
Is there a specific reason why you're using PFD versus any other cotton fabric? Is it a tighter weave or anything?
No, it's actually not a very tight weave. It's kind of similar to Kona
Okay.
solids. In fact, I think they even have their own version of
Kona.
PFD. What I like about it is it doesn't have any colors in it, and it doesn't have any optic whiteners, which also take up the space that color would take on a fabric. So it's kind of a soft off-whitish color because it's a natural color.
Okay.
So that's why I like it.
All right.
All right, so we've got it all taped down, and then so when I'm gonna trace this label, let's focus on this lolly word.
Okay.
Right, you see it on here and it's fat and scrolly and black, and you certainly can trace it like that. But this for me is just a framework, right? This is just sort of my skeleton of where I'm going.
Okay.
So I can do it chubby and black like it is on the printout. I can maybe pick a color, one of my permanent fabric marker colors.
Right.
And see how I've kind of made the curvy parts chubbier.
Yeah,
and I
okay.
added some polka dots for sparkle. This one I traced outside of it to make it a little bit fatter and then colored it in.
Okay.
And then this one's skinny. Just because on your printout the word is chubby, you can still write it with a thin line.
Right.
And then that one's done with the cross hatching.
I love all the options.
So you have like all these options, right?
Right.
So on my label, what won was just the color with a little bit chubbier curves, because I want my colored in wow factor, maybe an ombre color or something to be where Preston's
You want him
is.
to be,
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so what black did you use though?
So, so we all love the Micron Pigma, skinny pens, and I've heard everyone say all the time, well, they dry out really fast. Well, they don't actually dry out. What happens is it's a product that's not made for fabric. And so the dust and the lint of the fabric goes up into the ferrule, which is the little metal part, and clogs it up. So we do love them, and they work great, and they're lasting. Just know that's the nature of the beast.
Okay.
They're going to seem like they dry out really fast.
Okay.
And I cannot find a great fine line black that is made for fabric.
Okay.
So, but I do love this one as well. This came over from my journaling. It is a Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and it's India ink.
Okay.
So it's very highly pigmented. It's very permanent.
And this one's got an S for small? I don't know.
Super fine.
Super fine. Okay. All right.
It's very thin.
I'm good with
so
that.
I don't know.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So
now you said at this stage, once you do the tracing in black, this is the heat set point?
Okay, so I think of my quilt label in 2 stages. I do the line work, and then I do the color.
Okay.
So anything that I'm going to do in my black line work, I would write onto my label like this.
Right.
And then I would heat set it.
Okay. All right. And what, 10 seconds?
Yeah, it's just fast.
All right.
And then once it's heat set, you can add color to the inside. So I've given you a little pretend label. And it is heat set. I did the line work for you because that's not very exciting to watch.
Yeah, but yay.
And I heat set it for you. So we can try a couple of fabric markers. One thing that I recommend with any art supply is that you have a little tester strip. Did I give you a little tester strip?
Yes, you did. Yep.
Because your art supply is never really going to look exactly like the caps tell you it's going to look. So you want to test it. You want to check it before you wreck it.
Okay.
Right?
I will do that.
Okay, so you
I'll
can
take one.
Yep. And I usually start with a lighter one. I'll just show you on mine, and then you can give it a try.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll leave a little bit of white at the top.
Look, she's not
And
testing it before she wrecked it.
Okay, test. You're right, I didn't. And so then I will do, and it doesn't even really see how that's just kind of choppy.
Okay, that's pretty straight and forward though.
Right?
So
then I would heat set that layer. And then
Okay.
I'm going to take this little bit of darker
you're
one
gonna
away from you.
I know what you're
and then
gonna
I would
do.
kind of come down and do, I can darken it up at the bottom and give it a little,
bit or something.
yeah, give it a little pizzazz.
All right.
So-
So, well, I don't know that I need to do that. So you
Okay.
just did.
Right.
All right. So let's just.
So you can do the next one.
I'll do the next one. Okay.
So this is your permanent fabric markers, and they have pros and cons. Everything, all art supplies do, right? So the pros are that they're inexpensive. They're very bold colored, and they're very highly pigmented, and they're cheap.
The con.
But you don't get a very nuanced color palette.
Okay.
With them.
Okay.
You get kind of the crayon box bright colors.
Okay.
So if you want to do something that's like peach or turquoise or
So-
something that's more of a nuanced color.
So now we're moving to ink tints, you guys, and let's take a look at these two labels. And let me just hold this up real quick because we are moving to ink tints.
Right.
And we've got a big, huge tub of it here.
So ink tints, let me just say, because these look like colored pencils. These are not colored pencils. They are ink. It's dye in the core. It's in the pencil form.
Right.
So ink tints comes in 3 forms. It comes in the pencil form. It comes in these sticks that are like chalk pastels. They
Yes,
look just
yes,
like chalk
yes.
pastels. And it comes in a like watercolor pad.
Right.
But I prefer the pencil form because it is ink dye that is not activated. You activate it to get more. So if I'm using a chalk pastel and I'm coloring in my quilt label and I set it down,
It's all over your hand.
I might do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Wow.
And then you've got this
Yeah,
ink, this dye
I've
that's
got
out
it.
in the
Yeah,
wild
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not controlled and it
Sure.
might be a recipe
All right,
for
let's
disaster.
look at these
So-
labels because these are using ink tints. So this is beautiful. And it's a little more subtle. I'm seeing that.
Yes, you can get lighter colors,
And
which
then
you can't
this
really
one
get.
here that's, yeah, beautiful. All right, I love it.
Okay, so again, you're going to take your pencil and you can go ahead and
right.
pick out a color.
I'm gonna go with the orange
They're
or red.
highly, highly pigmented. So when you color with them, it doesn't really need to show up that much. I'm just testing on my Lauren right here. This is me
I'm testing on me on my R, so I'm gonna wreck it. So just kind of do that, right?
Yep, you just put a little bit on there. And then, so you've got your ink down on your fabric, but you need to activate it.
All right, let's talk
And
about
you do that with moisture.
All right.
Okay? So what I have a couple of paintbrushes over here. I'm just going to talk about this one first.
Okay.
This is, I call it a water brush. It has
Right.
a hollow handle that's full. It has a reservoir of water. So if I squeeze the handle, water will come out and moisten the tips.
Right.
Okay. So just water. That's all that's in here.
Okay.
Is water. And I'm just going to activate here, and you can see. I just want to get a little more water out there.
Okay.
You can see as I'm activating it that it is it's growing
Wicking.
outside of my lines.
Right, and that's what, let's bring this over here. That's what happened here,
Right.
which is okay. It's
Right,
totally
that
if
looks
that's
really
what you
cool.
want.
That
Yeah.
looks awesome. I think
Yeah.
it's very arty and fun looking. But
Okay.
if you don't want it to go outside of the lines
And let's just pull this one
and you
in.
want to have a little bit more control,
Yep.
I have a couple of products. One is a heat set fabric medium. There's all different brands. None are better than the other. That's just one brand that I grabbed out of my cabinet really quick.
Okay.
It's a heat set fabric medium. It's made to mix with paint to make it permanent on fabric.
Okay.
It's as watery as water. If you like squirt some out into our little container, you'll see
Oh
it's
yeah,
super
it's
runny.
like, yeah, it's even waterier than milk.
Right.
More water, yeah.
So you'll get that same spreading out effect if you just use the medium.
All right.
So what I've put in this little tube is 1/3 of my heat set medium and 2/3 of aloe vera gel from the pharmacy.
Sure. Okay. All right.
And that makes it super thick. You can see if I turn it upside down, it
It's
doesn't
thick.
even
All right.
move.
So let's do a little bit of that.
So let's activate yours with the
Okay.
gel and the medium. I'm going to put a little bit in here for you. And then the brushes that I like for this are called shaders. Those are super tiny. That's what I want you to use. But what
Okay.
a shader is a brush that is fat on one way
Right.
you turn it, and when you turn it the other way, it's really skinny.
Okay.
And this is an angled shader. It has an angle on it. There's also a square shader. Guess what?
Don't use it.
It's square.
Yeah. Don't use the
No,
square.
square's
okay.
fine.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right.
I think you might have even. I
get
think
it.
you might have even picked up a square shader.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just
Yeah.
go ahead and load it all in
So
there.
load it all up and then just
and then
paint on this.
And yep, just get it moist, and you'll see that. See how nice all
and
that
it's
is
not
just
going to be
blending, and
yeah.
it doesn't.
And it makes a more rich color. Look at that. Wow.
Yep. And it doesn't. It stays inside the line. It doesn't feather out.
And I could come back in. Do you let this? Well, I would heat set this, let it dry, heat set it, and then come back with a darker shade, or would I have already done my darker shade if I wanted it at the bottom?
Okay. If you want a darker shade at the bottom, once you've got that all activated, you're going to heat set it, and then just colored pencil or
And go again,
ink right on top of
and
it.
then do it again.
Yep. And then heat set it again.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, I think this is absolutely fabulous. I can't not show this because this is look at this, everybody. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's Lauren Vlcek
I know,
bringing
so
us
fun,
all
so
kinds
fun.
of magic. Thank you so very much. I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, me too.
Lolly.
Great to be here. Thank
So
you.
happy about that. And Preston, we're going to give you some good love too. So he's just a baby right now, but someday he'll see
Yes.
this, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. We want to say thanks to Phyllis Cullen for her wonderful faces today. It's just been such a joy. I hope you had fun visiting with us today. And remember, everybody, you got this?
Yep.
It's a new day
Every day.
Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss the after set.
Phyllis, we've been focusing on faces, but I understand it's time to focus on feet because you have some really a cool trick up your sleeve. What do you do?
Well, I don't like traditional exercise, but I do like dancing. So I'm going to teach you to do a little soft shoe. And this is what it's going to sound like. Are you ready?
Like I know how to do that. You're going to go slow for me?
I'm gonna go real
This
slow.
is not in my wheelhouse.
Here we go.
Okay.
Right, left, right.
Okay.
Left, right, left. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right. It's a stuffed shoe.
Okay. I followed you now. Does it have to go faster?
A little, let's try it a little bit
Okay,
faster.
here we
You
go
ready?
again.
Go. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Right, left, right, left, right, left. That's it.
All right. One more time faster.
Oh,
here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Right,
Right.
left, right. Left, right, left. Right, left, right. Left, right, left.
Oh, I might have did it.
You done it.
That was so fun. But I think I'm going to do some boot scooting now because that's more in my wheelhouse. Or let's do a do-si-do.
There we go.
Thank you for a fun day.